Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to Dr. Kim Going Live. Today, we're going to be discussing what steps to take after an affair. Dr. Kim, if I just found out that my spouse had an affair on me, what should I do first?
I think it's so important. I always talk about prayer a lot, but I really think prayer is the first thing to do, to just kind of center yourself and ask God for his help and wisdom to help him calm you down so you can think clearly, because usually it's a huge shock. And so it just, your emotions can go crazy. And then I think you got to find out what your spouse wants to do. Do they want to fight for the marriage? Are they remorseful? All that kind of stuff. And if so, I would definitely suggest counseling. I think it's very hard to work through an affair without counseling, without some structure, without someone to help guide you through that. Someone can be a third party when you're talking about very difficult questions and hard to answer. And I think the other thing I would say to someone, don't try to make sense of it, that an affair never makes sense. It's sin, it's wrong. It just will never make sense. And I think sometimes we spend a lot of time, what did I do? Or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Don't get hung up on that. Hung up on where you are now. What do you need to do? What are you guys going to do going forward?
Okay. So I know this is like a really big question. Do we separate or do we stay in the same home? And I know that this can depend on the couple.
Yeah, I think if you're going to work on it, you need to stay in the same home.
Okay.
But if you're not, if a person says they're out, they're not going to work on it, then move out. You can begin to start that process. But I think if you're working on it, it's good to be in the same home. Because what I found, a couple of couples that they have separated for a while they were working on it, but then the person who didn't have the affair is always wondering what's the other person doing in their apartment, or all that kind of stuff. Or they get obsessed. Okay, I keep finding my phone on, or Life 360 on, and so then they're obsessively looking to where that person went. So I think just everything you can do to minimize some of those things, and staying in the same home, unless there's just so much conflict that you need some cooling off time. But I would do that with a counselor, and I do it structured. I just wouldn't do it on your own.
Yeah. I mean, that trust is completely broken.
Yes. Yeah.
I get it. Do we need to be talking on a daily basis, or is this something that we need to just leave to the counselor?
I think it does depend on each couple. If they live in the same house, certainly, definitely. But I think the other thing in that, not just talking, but really working on listening to each other. It goes for both of them, the person who had the affair and the person who had the affair was had on, that you want to really listen to your spouse when they're talking, trying to understand, trying to get to a point where you feel like, okay, we are really at a point where now we're going to work on all this together.
Yeah.
That takes some time. The first 6 months are tough.
Other than speaking to a counselor and pray, what other steps should I take?
I think you need to have someone to talk to. So there needs to be someone that you trust, and someone that is pro-marriage, that's not going to be a spouse basher, but someone you can go to and say, we've decided to work on this marriage. I need your encouragement. I need someone to talk to. And I think that in addition to counseling, but just don't pick the wrong person.
I know it's so easy to do that. We can trust a lot of people, and they, can badmouth our marriage, badmouth our spouse, and that's obviously going to reflect on our marriage.
And that's not going to help you get out of it all. You know what happened. You know what did. You've made the choice now to do everything you can to work it out. So you don't need somebody throwing water on it all the time.
Yeah. Do you think that the trust is ever restored in the marriage?
Yes, I think it can be. I think it takes time. I think Cindy Bill, who has written a couple of books on it, her husband Chris, they're very open about it. There's a book, had an affair. And I think one time I asked Cindy, I said, do you ever worry about Chris having an affair again? And she just goes, I don't today. I see Jesus in him today. Every day I see Jesus in him. I don't worry about it. And Chris was kind of the poster child of what do you do after you have an affair? I mean, everything is transparent with him. He lets her know where even years past this, he is 100% accountable to her all the time, so she never has to worry. I think that's a big part of it too.
Absolutely.
But sometimes some person will tell me, how long do I have to do this? I'll say the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You don't want her to or him ever to doubt again.
Yeah.
So you keep doing those things to build that trust. And so I think it can. It's hard. And there's, and I think one thing I do with couples too is just say, well, what areas do you trust them in? Well, this person said, I trust him that he's a really good dad. I
Yeah.
trust him to provide and continue to provide. I mean, she was able to see areas she trusts. And so then we're able to isolate this area that had to do with the affair. And so we can just focus on that. But realize there's other things that you can embrace about your spouse right now. You can trust them in.
Yeah.
It's this area that we're working on.
That's a great way to look at that. I love that. So, do you think that I need to have access to my spouse's finances and phone information, or should I trust that they're being honest with me?
I just think all couples should have everything transparent.
Okay.
And just be careful again about don't be obsessive with it. But I just think, why hold a secret? I mean, if I didn't want Nancy to see what was on my phone, then probably I need to change what's on my phone.
Absolutely.
And so I think that transparency where you don't even hesitate for your spouse to pick up your phone or to look on your iPad or your computer or anything, emails, anything like that.
Yeah. What do I do if my spouse doesn't immediately terminate the communication with the person they had the affair with?
They got to leave.
Okay.
You just don't need that. There's just too painful to do that. I had a couple that did that once years and years ago, and he lived upstairs, she lived downstairs, but it didn't last that way very long. It was so awkward. They didn't even speak to each other because he was on the way out, but she was letting him live there until he found a place. And if you're not going to work on it, I think you need to get out.
You got to get out right now. Yeah. What if my spouse does not agree to go to counseling with me?
I would go on your own.
Okay.
And either way, whether your spouse is going to work on the marriage or not, then I think the counseling will help you. If you're working on the marriage, hopefully your spouse will at some point come alongside you. But yeah, go for yourself. Get yourself healthy.
Okay. So if I have no trust left and can't go to counseling because I'm so hurt, what do you recommend me do?
Well, I think prayer, and I think you need somebody to talk to.
Okay.
Well, like I said earlier, I think having a good mentor, maybe finding a woman or a man that's a season ahead of you, maybe
Yeah.
your pastor can recommend somebody, but you just can't keep all that in. You've got to have somebody to talk and process through. Plus, journaling is a big help. Journaling, I usually have people do journaling anyway, because one, I think it helps you get your thoughts and ideas out. But two, you can pick it up again in a month and look back and say, oh, I didn't think I made progress, but I really did, because I'm better than I was a month ago. So I think those things really help.
Yeah, that's nice to look back and be like, wow, I did actually make progress. Even though I still don't feel great, I made so much progress, in 2 months.
Absolutely. Because it may be baby steps at first, but for a long time.
Yeah. Do you think that the person that we need to communicate with should be a family member or never a family member?
I
Biden.
hesitate family members.
Okay.
Now, I think if you're going to get the divorce and everything, yeah, I mean, I think everything's off, talk to if you can. If you're trying to make it, what's going to happen is your family's going to side with you. And then you guys get together and you're happy and things are working good. They always have this black mark on your spouse.
Yeah.
And it's hard to give it up. If it was me, it was my daughter in that situation, it would be hard for me to let go of that, especially if I knew everything in the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you know couples who have gone through an affair that have made it out on top?
Yes. Yes. That's always such a cool celebration when that happens. And sometimes it takes a while. I've had couples I've worked with way over 2 years, really. And that doesn't mean that we met every week for that whole time. Maybe we kind of began to meet every 2 weeks, then once a month, and every whatever, that kind of thing. But yeah, when a couple finally gets it, and every couple that I know that has made it and worked through all that stuff says their marriage was better than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Because I think you have figured out, you've worked through probably one of the hardest things a couple can work through. You've learned to trust each other. You've learned to communicate better. You've learned what transparency is all about. And so your marriage can be better than it's ever been.
Yeah, I love that. There's
always hope. There's always hope. But you both got to be all in. And usually early on in counseling, if a couple's there, I give them some homework assignments. And one of those is to help them. The other is to see if they do them.
Yeah.
Because one comes back and they've done it, the other hadn't, or giving me all kinds of excuses. You just know they're not all in.
Yeah.
So I'm usually probably more honest with people early on than I used to be. I don't want you to waste your time and money by coming here if you don't really want to work on this. Yeah. And if you do, I am here 100% for you. And if you don't spend the money on it.
Yeah. I think that's good and that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately all the time that we have for today. But if you guys have additional questions about having an affair or just like what actions to take afterwards, please feel free to reach out to us in the comment section below. And we will see you guys